Welcome to the Proactive Women Podcast. I'm your co-pilot, Fran Marie, and we're getting ready for our pilot to arrive to talk about something real important, and that's your finances. During the show, just go online. It's JP Financial Group, LLC, or you can just check out Proactive Women Podcast wherever you listen to your podcast. What are we doing today? We are bragging, at least I'm bragging, on Joyce Palmer, our pilot, our founder and CEO. So our pilot is ready. Guess what our topic is? Yes, Joyce was on TV. We're going to brag about it. WCNC, I want to thank Colin Mayfield, WCNC, because that segment about finances and African-American women as entrepreneurs was real important. There was a lot of stats that were shared. So without further ado, ladies and gentlemen, our founder and managing partner at JP Financial Group, LLC, it's Joyce Palmer.
Hi, Fran Marie.
How are you doing?
I am doing excitingly well.
That was the best segment I have seen on finances on WCNC, especially for an African-American woman, Black women entrepreneurs, to know the stats that we're up against.
Yeah, it was amazing. The show was fun. It was exciting. It was amazing. It just reminded me of why JP Financial Group and what it does is meaningful. So it started out, like I said, with some great stats, and those stats are incredible. What it does, it reminds us that African-American women in particular is one of the fastest growing groups of entrepreneurs, yet we still are not able to get the finances. We're still not able to get the capital and the resources that other groups are able to get when it comes to starting up businesses.
Wow. So driving this episode today is our CNC interview that Joyce did, Black women entrepreneurs. And, you know, we're front and center when it comes to starting a business. But I'm telling you, it's a lot of things we don't see that hit us. It blindsides us.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And that's exactly why the podcast exists. It's one of the means that we can use to help communicate not only to African-American women and business owners, but to everyone. I think it's important not only that Black African-American women entrepreneurs know these stats, but other people need to know the stats, because that's what's going to cause the movement, right? When other groups get involved with it. And so JP Financial Group, we're here to change the narrative. We're here to help get the word out, to help communicate why business ownership, why it's so important, why entrepreneurship is a unique space to be in. And African-American women do a phenomenal job and can do even more when we are supported.
And speaking of more, get your girlfriends together. Your business, I know that you have a girlfriend that has her own business. She's an entrepreneur in some form or fashion. She's baking cakes. She's building websites. She has a financial situation going on. We know friends who need to know the information because they're not going to come out and say it. Because many times we feel like, oh, I'm behind. I need to get forward, but I don't want anyone to know that I'm behind. Right?
Right.
So share this podcast because it's getting ready to get hot in here.
I've said, I think one of the questions that was asked in the industry that I'm in, the financial service industry, as an entrepreneur, a Black female and entrepreneur in the financial service industry, what does it feel like? What does that space look like? And my motivation comes from being in the room often when I go to conferences or to meetings. I'm often the only one that looks like me in those meetings. So the financial industry is already high pressure. It's already a very competitive space. And as a Black woman, to be the only one in the room in many cases, or one of two in the room, it's a different weight that you carry when you go.
I don't know if we should share this statement right now, but it's not really a secret, but not everybody knows that as an African-American woman, the way you speak, the way you dress, your demeanor, how you're interpreted. Yeah. We have to code switch to accommodate a role. And that's a lot of work. So kudos to you for standing up and not quitting.
Yeah, exactly. It reminds me of a personal story, a personal moment when my daughter, Jana, was probably about 12. I think she was probably 11 or 12. And the time she was going to Providence Day, private school. And she had to cut her hair because she had perm damage. And I recall, her being traumatized, crying, hysterical. And she was devastated. Her first words were, I don't want to cut my hair because I'm not going to be liked anymore. I'm not going to be pretty anymore because my hair is not going to be long. I'm not going to have a ponytail. It's not going to be pretty. I'm not going to be pretty anymore. And the words, when she said it, it broke me. It really did, because what I saw was someone who was totally impressed or being impressed upon based on hair, right? So right then at that moment, I sat in a salon chair, and my hair was probably the length it is now, and it was straight. And I told the stylist, cut mine too. Cut it all off. I want to be natural. I want it to be short. And I remember the stylist, are you sure, Miss Palmer? I said, yeah, because hair is, it doesn't make it right. It shouldn't make who you are. But for a 12-year-old person, a 12-year-old girl at that, it meant everything. So representation is very powerful. It does make a statement. And what it mattered for her, it mattered for me in the boardroom. It matters for a lot of women that are entrepreneurs when they're out there in that competitive area and you're being judged by everything, your hair, your clothes, your speech, everything you say or do. Yeah.
And I don't know, that's so touching, right? We should just have a moment.
I know the hair. And now, just for the record, her hair is down here, and she has a different style every day. She was into, there's weaves, and then there's extensions, and there's braids, and it's different colors. So now the hair is just a point tool for her. So totally transformation from that day.
But you helped shape her identity for the future. That is so touching. That is so touching. So as we move along, self-worth. Thank you for helping us with our self-worth. Thank you for sharing what we have learned over the years, being in rooms and boardrooms where there was no one that looked like you and you did not give up. So let's have some applause right there.
Okay.
Yeah, because did you consider it it wasn't a hustle, but it is a hustle in a sense when you have to, I don't know if that's the right word. It is challenging. You have to mentally get ready to go into the room.
Yeah, you do. Starting up a business of any type, it's a tough move, right? A lot of times we start business out of necessity. Sometimes we start business because it is a side hustle that we enjoy doing, and we want to be able to do it on our own full time. But the key with the funding is it shouldn't be that we have to scrape and try to figure out how to fund our business, our dreams out of our own pockets. It should be means to get capital and get resources and to get monies to do that. And that's where it's just not enough of that for Black entrepreneur women.
Do you think, I don't want to say this, but should we think in short term or long term? Or do we, because the long term is strategy and that's what you teach. Mm-hmm. So I just answered mine.
Right. Right. It should be sustainable. When you're building that business, you want it to be sustainable. You want to build something that will be a legacy, ultimately.
Okay.
That goes past yourself. Initially, when you're building a business, you're thinking about, okay, I got to make money to stay in business. But eventually you get to a point where now I need to scale the business so that it becomes a legacy, so that I can walk away from it and it still exists. There are some fundamental things you have to understand, and this goes in personal as well as business. That's why I think at JP Financial Group, we do such a phenomenal job with individuals as well as business owners, because we start with things like cash flow, right? You have to have cash flow straight, right? Say, girls, get your cash flow right. Know what's coming in every month, know what's going out. You have to look at taxes, because all of the money that you make is not yours. So in business, you have taxes just like you do on the personal side. You have to look at protection. Insurance is kind of like the fundamental. Protect your business, protect yourself. If you are the CEO, the managing partner, the marketing person, the operation person, the salesperson, if you're all that in your business, which you are sometimes, are you protected? Do you have insurance? God forbid something happens to you, what happens to the business? So insurance or protection is important. And then there's retirement planning. I know as a business owner, and this one was one that was tough for me as a business owner, you're putting back into your business every day. You want to see it grow. You want to see it build. You're not thinking about one day I'm going to retire from this. You're like, I love what I do. I can do this till I'm 90, right? But eventually, you do want to retire. So you have to think about retirement planning, and that has to be a piece of your being intentional when you're a business owner, making sure, because you don't have that 401k that you have in a job, right? So you have to intentionally put money away and build your retirement planning for yourself.
Intentionally.
Yeah.
Intentionally. Because a lot of times we feel and we just, when we walk into the boardroom, so when we walk into the banks, we want them to see our brilliance, but sometimes we have to prove it 3 times over. So that makes us feel invisible.
Yeah. Often it does. And that's where it's a peace of mind to know that you have created a business and have it wealth. And it's a peace of mind to know sometimes that you're operating from a plan, not just a dream, but a plan. One of my personal desires is to also make sure that I'm leaving something for my daughter, right? I mean, right now, full disclosure, I think she thinks money still grows on trees. I really do. But eventually, one day, she's going to get it. And I want it to be in position so that she can walk into a business that has been built, that's sustainable, that's strong enough to last not only through her, but through her children as well.
I love that, right? We do have to look out for our loved ones. We really, really do.
Yes.
I know it's a little more on us, right? But the world is changing, so her generation is different than our generation. Of course, the money doesn't grow on trees. I think that was the like,
don't tell her it doesn't. And I really think she does believe that.
I let her believe that. I'm with you in that though.
And I'm a little older. I'm not there.
But it's yeah, because we have to work for every inch of it.
Yeah, we do.
Every millimeter. So you want to talk about so you've got to share the deets. But you've got to share the tips. I need full secrets and full disclosure right now. We work in threes, right? I can remember 3. Like, here, I'll tell you after 3. What are 3 wonderful tips, financial tips you can give us when we are in business as women, as entrepreneurs?
Yeah, we might pick 3 too. You didn't catch that episode. We did a fantastic, remember that podcast we did on pick 3 just in case. If you didn't get a chance, you need to go back and listen to that one. It was really good. But pick 3, we use the same concept. Make things simplified. Instead of being overwhelmed by all of the things that you need to do, identify the most important one and focus on those first, and then move on to the next one. So as a business owner, if I was to say, identify those 3 priorities that you need to focus on as you're building your business and you're developing your plan. The first one, of course, and this one I too learned the hard way, is separate your business from your personal. So as a small business owner, you start out and you're like, okay, this is my business, this is my money, this is all mine. But you have to distinguish between what's business and what's personal. So you set up a separate business account, of course, your business legality, LLC or corporation, however you're going to form yourself, but you separate business from personal.
Okay.
So oftentimes as the business makes money, you're putting money back into the business. So you may not be making as much on the personal side, and you have to make sure you're separating the two. Like I said, I had to learn that because thinking, well, the business is doing pretty good. I can go shush. But not quite. Sometimes you have to not pay yourself because your business has to get paid first. The second thing, and we touched on this, is protect yourself.
Okay.
Protect yourself from a legal standpoint, protect yourself from an insurance standpoint, protect your intellectual capital, and that's important. That's one that is big in our industry. Your network, your contacts, your database, your clients. That's your intellectual capital. Protect it. Protect your business with setting it yourself up as legally proper as you can. And then the third thing is pay yourself and save for retirement. Because even though you love what you do, one day you do want to be in a position to walk away from it and retire and know that you have built yourself a retirement plan. So paying yourself and putting money towards your retirement is important as a business.
And that just reminds us to protect ourselves. It reminds us that we can go to the website right now. It's jpfinancialgroupllc.com. We can go to Proactive Women Podcast. There's so many ways of staying connected because, as we mentioned before, you don't want to feel invisible, right? And so you can get a 20-minute strategy call. So then we can, because sometimes the Monday, you feel like the weight of the world is on you.
Yeah.
Well, Tuesday, just call the number. Do you like the phone calls or do you like the emails?
I like both.
Okay.
Yeah, I like both. A 20-minute strategy call is definitely a quick way to just get questions answered, get a clarification on something that you want to get clarification on. It also gives us an opportunity to gauge what our next step needs to be. So a lot of times that phone call, I can hear in a person's voice where their frustration lies sometimes. And just in hearing them, I'm able to identify where we need to go. So the email doesn't do that sometimes. The email just says something, but hearing your voice and listening to you explain what you're concerned about allows me to tune into where your real frustration is lying. So the phone call probably is better.
All right. Yeah, don't play small, play big. Get on that phone. Joy, she loves it. Because I want you to read the room. I want you to read my life, and I bet you can do that within seconds. Because when we met, I don't know if we want to share this, I was in the red zone. I didn't like red zone. Yeah. Sometimes when you're living life, you forget to save for the next life, for the future. So, wise words. Let's close out, but you got to get and subscribe. We'd like you to follow, like, subscribe the podcast, Progressive Women Podcasts, on any platform that you listen to your podcast to. And also just go to the website so you can schedule your strategy call. 20 minutes, that's a long time. That is a long time, eh?
Sometimes it's a long time, and sometimes it goes by really fast.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you for reading us. Okay, let's close out today. Let's close out.
Yes. I want to just remind my business owners out there, my sisters, and encourage them to continue to dream and think big. Don't play small. Continue to show up and show out, as they say. Continue to look for ways to collaborate. That is something that I'm always doing. Together, we are so much more stronger in how those. When we get the collaboration part, it's great. Sometimes we are competitive. Sometimes it's difficult for us to understand how to work together. But when we can figure it out and do it, it's amazing the things that we get accomplished. So I look forward to collaborating even more with other women business owners.
Oh, let's toast it then. Check like you